So when the first Five Nights at Freddy's game was released, it really wasn't on my radar. But a guy I worked with at that time whose name was actually Freddy, and I want to believe he was drawn to the game due to it having his name in it. I mean, he was just one of those types of guys, if you know what I mean. But he was a cool dude, so it is what it is. But he talked about the game all the time. He would show us gameplay on his phone. He wouldn't stop. It just was what he was into. It just was game at that moment that I wasn't really interested in. So I just didn't, pay much mind to it. But that same year, my youngest son was born. And now he's really into it. He's really into Five Nights at Freddy's. So I've become more interested in the franchise because of that. Now, I remember when I was a kid, my family, they could give two craps about what video games or hobbies I was interested in. Just the way it was. Sucks, but that's how it was. I could talk about all sorts of things to do with video games, characters. Nobody ever seemed to care. So yeah, I wasn't going to have my kids feel the same way I did. So it's fun sharing some of the same hobbies and interests as your kids, So when Megacat Studios, who's been a friend of the channel for some years now, hit me up to check out Five Nights at Freddy's game that they just released, it was like, hell yeah, let's go. So this game, Into the Pit, is based off of the Fazbear Frights #1 book of the same name. I only know that because of my son. So you play as Oswald, a kid whose dad drops him off at Jeff's Pizza, a rundown family pizza place, and winds up being late to pick him up. So to get back at his dad and teach him a lesson, Oswald, after hearing of a secret ball pit, decides he's gonna go hide in it. But after jumping in, he's transported back in time to 1985, where the pizza place is packed with kids, it's clean, has animatronics, fully functioning arcade. Kind of reminds me of Bullwinkle's when I was a kid. Man, Bullwinkle's was awesome. They're redoing it now. It's a cool place. So he meets a couple kids his age, Chip and Mike, hangs out with them, plays some games. Kind of weird, going back in time, but yeah. So he's going on, chilling, doing all this stuff, and then some craziness goes down while they're like playing hide and seek, tag and stuff. And there's like all these kids, they're screaming, running for their lives. Then there's this animatronic bunny coming after you. You escape back to the ball pit. Now you're in your current year time that you live in, but your dad, he's angrily out there. He's like waiting for you. From there, while you're getting scolded, I guess, your dad gets pulled into the pit. You grab him to save him, pull him back out, but he's no longer the same. You now see him as that bunny from earlier, and this begins night one. I mean, there's a lot more to it. I'm not spoiling everything. Just want to kind of review this game, give you the rundown of what's going on, though. So throughout the game, you go back and forth to the ball pit many times, traveling in 1985 and coming home to current day, trying to piece things together in order to save your dad. So the first thing that stood out to me about this game is the pixel art and the animations. So I was going to say animatronics. It's kind of, it goes together there. But yeah, the animations, pixel art, it looked amazing to me. The facial expressions, the smooth animations, everything looked very well done. I really enjoy this kind of like new retro aesthetic, and it worked very well with a horror adventure game like this. Now, as far as the gameplay goes, for those of you who've been into, Five Nights at Freddy's franchise over the years, there'll definitely be a lot of elements that feel familiar here. But at the same time, it's quite different than, most of the games that I'm familiar with the franchise. The one game, as far as the gameplay style, the genre and atmosphere, that I can compare this game to is Clock Tower, for the Super Famicom. There's so many instances in this game that are comparable to that game. Similar, but not exactly the same. I mean, this is not a point-and-click game. You freely control Oswald's movement with traditional, controls. But the constant dread of not knowing, where the threat's going to come from next, the sound design, the music, the exploration, the search for items to help you along the way, it just kind of felt very similar to Clock Tower to me, especially, with that retro aesthetic going on here. And that was a good thing. It was a really good thing, in my opinion. So Into the Pit also has multiple endings, depending on how you play, the things that you do and how you do them. So I thought that was pretty cool. There's some decent replayability here, a lot of Easter eggs, secret items, mini games to play and unlock. There's bad, good, and I guess good, bad endings you can get. I think the ending I got, which was a 2-star ending, That's what it said anyway. I think that was like in the middle. It was like a good, but also some bad type of ending. I mean, because there's something bad that happened at the end. Like, I'm not going to spoil the ending I got. Like, you know, if you want to play this game, you got to see the endings yourself. But when I played it and I got the ending, like everything happened, and then you had to wait till the credits ran through to see the complete ending. It's kind of like watching a movie, like how you have to wait out the credits to see if there's a post-credit scene. So yeah, you know, if you play this game, just wait through the credits. Like, don't just like turn the game off or try to skip the credits. Because yeah, I was almost like, okay, cool, credits played, I'm done. But I waited and there was more to it. So yeah, post-credit scene. I don't know if all the endings have that, but the ending I got, there was a little extra at the end. And when I looked it up, it was like, okay, it was like a good bad ending. Okay. So yeah, there's multiple endings. Now, you know, my overall experience with the game was mostly good. A few moments of frustration, though, gotta be honest, like I was getting a bunch of game overs. Like not throughout the entire game, but there was like a small section of the game, I think 75% through the game, I just kept getting caught by an animatronic. It was mostly my fault, I'm gonna be honest. Like these things, they got a mind of their own. They won't always be in the same place or react the same. Like if you get a game over and you keep restarting, like where you left off, like everything's not going to be the same. Like the animatronic's not going to start off where like you got killed the last time. Like they always like wind up being different areas or reacting differently. So, you know, keep that in mind. You just got to be smart with your movement, how and where you hide if they do wind up seeing you or you see them. You have a sound meter. You got to keep an eye on that. When hiding, a lot of the spots will trigger like a quick time event or like a mini game type of thing. And you need to succeed in that or you get caught. Nothing overly complicated, but the first time doing them, if you're not prepared or quick enough, you will game over. The only times I was really annoyed was like really later in the game when all the animatronics were out and I found myself trapped if there were like wound up being two of them in a small room. But that didn't happen too often, to be honest with you. And then there's a couple times where it was like, okay, wait, how do I get out? Like, because you go back and forth between 1985 and then current day, and there's times where like each time where it changes, like, okay, night 1, night 2, night 3, you have to like escape your house certain days. And it's like, okay, there's certain ways to escape, but then sometimes it's not quite as obvious. And then you'll be like, oh, I could escape this way one night, but there's certain ways to escape. And if you could do it a different way each night, but if you did one night, you can't repeat it. So there's several ways to escape. You could do it in any order you want, but once you do it, you can't do the same way again. So I was getting confused, like with one of the last ways that I did it, I didn't know. It's like, wait, it's one of the most complicated ways to escape, but it's not crazy difficult. Like it's not too bad. I mean, the game wasn't exactly difficult to complete. I think for a first playthrough without looking up any guides or like videos of watching people play the game, you may spend a few hours to finish the game on the harder difficulty, which is what I played on. The game's world isn't exactly huge. The game has a decent challenge when it comes to figuring out the puzzles, like I was saying, but nothing too crazy, obscure, or difficult to figure out. Maybe a couple of things that might take a few minutes to like, you know, challenge yourself with. I mean, the challenge does mostly come from the hiding and avoiding of the animatronics, but I'm sure, you know, Five Nights at Freddy's fans would kind of expect that. But to find what's needed to get the best ending, though, you're definitely going to put in some work if you're not, you know, looking things up anyway. I think for Five Nights at Freddy's fans, this game's a no-brainer. But if you're also someone like me who likes classic horror adventure games like I spoke on earlier, the Super Famicom Clock Tower, this game may be worth giving a chance. I thought it was pretty cool. So yeah, I enjoyed it. I'm going to play through it a few more times now that I'm really familiar with it, you know, as far as how things work, where everything was. I really enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. Let me know what you think. Bye.